Welcome to Office Hours, the podcast where we talk about all the stuff management textbooks leave out. In today's episode, I'm talking to my friend Daniel about the things new managers get wrong in the first 90 days and how they start off on the right track. Let's get started.
My name's Daniel Medali. I'm currently a salesperson in a large company called Expeditors, where supply chain, transportation. I've worked in supply chain now for 24 years. I was a sales leader for the last decade, and only recently got back into direct sales. And before that, I was a branch or an ops, I guess you would call it a branch manager. I had people under my responsibility that were not salespeople. That's a whole other world, when you're going from managing people who are not salespeople. Managing salespeople is like therapy. Yeah. You're just a therapist the whole time. They're just an emotional roller coaster the whole time. I've been in transportation for a long time, and I've got a son in college, and I've got a daughter about to go to college in the fall, in August. And supply chain, our world, is something that no one really ever knew what we were doing until COVID.
Yeah. And everybody felt it when they didn't get their toilet paper.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. That's my world, and everything's falling apart.
No, that's really cool. So, yeah, and I think, man, we could have a whole other discussion on supply chain. That's I think some of the hottest programs at universities right now. So, but what I do want to talk about is your journey into management, your journey into leadership. And like I said, I really want to focus on what do you think managers get wrong in the first 90 days? Because you have been there in terms of being the manager and being the young manager. And now in your current role, you're mentoring a lot of young managers.
Yes.
So
yes.
Tell me a little bit about how and when you first became a manager. Like, what was your first experience? And then what surprised you most when you were first responsible for leading people?
I think, and just with the context of real world. So I think my first true experience is I wasn't even responsible for anybody. I worked in a hospital. I worked in a pharmacy, and I was equals. I was in college working part-time and then full-time on break. And my coworkers were 10, 20 years my senior. I didn't have a task list. No one worked for me. There wasn't a reporting structure. Yeah. However, we were equal. We both had the same boss. And, I was 19, 20, 21. Yeah. And they were, 30s, maybe early 40s.
Like this was their career, right?
This was their career. This was what they were doing to pay their mortgage. I didn't have a mortgage. I paid rent. Yeah. And I had beer money, and it was
student loans, right?
I remember my parents saying, "Listen, you're going to have a challenge because you're a lot younger than these people, and you're doing the same job that they are." I would get frustrated if somebody didn't do it as fast, or if something wasn't right, and they'd say, "Listen, you just keep it to yourself because people are going to get mad, and it's just the way it is." So when I became a leader, when I was formally into a manager role, which really it was in transportation, what happened? I was a salesperson first, right? I was hired as a salesperson, and then it became this. The owner of the company said, "Well, I want to add another salesperson. I want you to go hire somebody." So I had to go recruit and find somebody, hire them, and then ta-da, they work for you now. You're responsible for them. I am? And that person. So it was kind of this, you kind of fall into it, and you'd asked early missteps, right? With you think that because you're the manager, I have a manager title now. Well, I need this done, right? And it doesn't even matter the industry. If you could be anywhere, food service, hospitality. We were in the freight business, right? It wasn't that glamorous, and I did well with the drivers because the drivers were gruff, and they wanted direction, and they wanted to, and ultimately they weren't there all day. They were there in the morning. They would load their truck, and they go out on their routes. Come back.
So like management's very transactional for you at that point, right?
It was very transactional. Yes.
Yeah. But what was management like? what was your approach to that kind of management? Because it's like they already know their responsibility, and so
Hmm.
you're more managing the task, right? It's like get this
Correct.
done, start here, end there, and it's less really about the person, but just managing the task to get done, right?
Which is typically you think in theory it's easier because if
Yeah,
they know the expectation, you think, well, there's only so many hours in the day, they're going to get it done.
yeah,
Wishful thinking, right? You can't just say, well, if they're not doing it, I'll just do it myself, right? That will not
yeah,
get you anywhere.
yeah,
Um, so you start that, and what happens, right? Hey, I need you to get this done. I need it to be done immediately. Oh, I need it to. You need it to be done. Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
You're not going to do it. And you're like, oh no, that didn't go like I
yeah,
planned. Um, you've got to, I had the best luck with the people that I had the most in common with, that I could have an honest conversation with, that it wasn't even work related, right? If you
yeah,
can have an honest conversation about something that you have this common thread, you've now kind of gotten down to that next layer of the onion. And I'm not saying it makes it exponentially easier, but I am saying that if somebody if you can get somebody to open up just a little bit, right? You're seeing another layer, and they're seeing,
yeah,
but you have to give too, right? You can't just take. It's you have to do the same, and it's a
yeah,
slow process, and it's
yeah.
also depends on the atmosphere you're in. Are you in a high speed? There's a lot of stuff happening fast. Is
When you're responsible for delivery like that, you're dealing with people who are, yeah, like we say, kind of transactional. So
Mhm.
you're saying like connect with them, right? So it's what, like, how's your weekend going? Like trying to find that commonality, right?
Even deeper. I knew a guy drove an Indian motorcycle, and I
Okay.
knew Indian motorcycles, so I had to know about this motorcycle. It was a flathead something from the late 50s, and he told me all about it, and I knew immediately he was a big fan. And
Yeah.
so then I found out that he was in a band. He was in, and he knew this band that I listened to, right? And now, I didn't drive a motorcycle. I
Yeah.
never owned a motorcycle, but I thought it was cool, and I think I was genuinely interested.
Yeah.
I think you've got to pick
Yeah. It's that
something.
authenticity, right? Yeah.
Thank you. It's authenticity. You can't. People can see through that. Hey, how was your
Yeah.
weekend? Or did you have a good weekend?
Yeah.
That is so.
That's great. We
Uh,
have a lot of work to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Good. Or my favorite is like, hey, how you doing today? And they go back to typing their email. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So you really weren't asking me, right? You
Yeah.
have to avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ways
That's
to
really
do that.
good. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one of the ways to do that is you have a genuine, authentic interest
Yeah.
in something.
Yeah. 100%. So moving from being that manager, what was it like for you, going back to your story in the first 90 days? How did you connect with other people, with those guys that you have the Indian motorcycle? What did that
Yeah.
turn into? Did it turn into you being successful, or was it like, hey, look, I won that one guy over, and now I've got,
Yes.
three other guys?
You win one over, they start working in your support, right? And then it's almost
Yeah,
like the rumor spreads that you're not a bad guy. And as soon as the rumor starts to spread, because he was very close friends with another route driver, and
yeah,
that guy, it worked very well, right? We had a rapport, we had an understanding. They knew when the day started, they knew when the day ended, and they knew what had to be done. And of course, I
yeah,
had to explain circumstances in the context of what needs to be done, what can and can't be done in the day, and but it's like this. There's kind of this cool factor. I almost don't even like saying
yeah,
that, but
and
it's
yeah,
a cool factor. It's like hey, this guy's not terrible,
yeah.
and it
Yeah,
takes, you
I
have
think
to
that's
develop that.
really important, and kind of, yeah, being when you connect with people, right? You
Hmm.
start to understand, they see why you come to work. You start to help them connect why they come to work, and really understand why they come to work.
Yes.
Um, okay, so as a in that management role, you're going about you're going about your day doing that. And if you were like me, maybe you went into it thinking like, oh, like as a manager, like I'm going to get this done and this done and this done. And you kind of touched on this earlier when you said like you can't do everything.
Right.
You can't do it all yourself. So how can a new
No.
manager? How do you think a new manager can slow down without appearing ineffective?
Good question. I think you have to, what is the saying? You eat the elephant one bite at a time. I think you have to educate your surroundings, right? These are things I didn't know then, but there's something that has to be done regardless of what it is. But have you
Yeah,
communicated that to your team, right? Do they know what your goal is? I'm a firm believer in sharing. Like, I want my team to know what the overall goal is, whether it's
yeah,
how they bonus, how I bonus. When
yeah,
you tie monetary measurement to something, people gets their attention quickly. And even if not, like, early on, it wasn't like that. It was
yeah,
there's something that has to be done. We have to get through these things. And it wasn't an or else. It was just help me, right? But you have to educate your surroundings. And I think that was one thing I learned early on is
mm,
when you really start to communicate with people, it makes it easier to talk about the things that you do have to get done and what your goals are and what
yeah,
what the plan is. Because what do they say? When you get into leadership, it's not about you anymore, right? It's about your
yeah,
team. It's about the
yeah,
people that you're leading. And you're cutting down through the forest, right? As they're behind you going through. And if you can't get the path, right, they can't go. You have to be able to share and tell them that there has to be
mm,
a shared understanding. And it
yeah.
could be as
So
easy as
how do you have difficult conversations? Because not everybody is going to buy
yeah,
into that
no,
vision.
they don't.
As the job, or as manager, right? Your job is to take that team. You have your direction from your manager.
Hmm.
You know what the goals of the company are, and so you've got to get the team from point A to point B. And as you're doing that, not everybody is
No.
on your side as much as you've tried to connect with them. So how do you, especially as a new manager, especially in your first 90 days, hopefully it's not this for everybody, but if you are a new manager, how do you handle difficult conversations with people?
Always behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Always. I've seen, I've been in, places that they just you hear it and they see it, you see it, and that's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
Um, you have to
Yeah.
have
If you have a
honest.
fear of conflict, that makes it all the more difficult.
It makes it 10 times more difficult, and I don't mind having conversations about difficult topics, right?
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing to do. I think when you're early on into leadership, it's almost like it's a rite of passage that you have to fumble through it and really
Yeah.
struggle. And I've had customers, employees cry, and which happens. It happens, right?
Same.
And
Yeah.
and I've told people if they I'm sorry, I'm crying. It's like, hey, you're human. It's okay. I'm human.
Yeah.
And I understand. I think though that sometimes I like to write things down, make sure I have because my words will get jumbled in my head, right?
Yeah.
Organize your thoughts,
So
plan.
important. Yeah.
It's so important. You go in, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to go in hot, right? And you're going to say something you shouldn't say,
Hmm.
or, which is horrible, or you're going to be completely ineffective and you're not going to touch on it. And I've witnessed managers do
Yeah.
that. They talk in circles. You cannot talk in
Yeah.
circles. You have to be direct. You have to be specific, and that's why you write things down. You
Yeah.
carry it with you, so you have your thoughts in paper.
You ever like role played with anybody? Like, okay, I'm gonna have to have a difficult conversation because, Joey isn't performing. We're not meeting our metrics. Next conversation is going to be even more difficult about,
Right.
putting him on a PIP or something like that. Have you ever sat across from somebody and said, okay, you're going to be, I need you to play the employee so that we can kind of go back and forth?
I've only role played for different settings than that, than having a
Yeah.
hard conversation. But I will always open it, or I have always historically opened it with, "How do you think it's going? Why do you think I called you in, or why do you think we're having this dialogue right now?
Yeah.
You tell me. Like, I want to hear
That's
how
interesting.
you
Yeah.
because you get them started, and I've heard it all. You hear it's going great, everything's fine, and I've heard it's
It's
fine. I don't think it's going that well. Oh,
yeah. Yeah,
expand,
you're right.
like
You're
tell me
you're kind of
more.
allowing them to take a little bit of ownership
Oh,
over the
absolutely,
performance,
and
right?
you
Yeah.
can agree. Now we're agreeing. Well, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah.
I do. I tend to agree with you. Let's dive into that a little bit, or
Yeah.
expand. Tell me why you think it's not going
Yeah.
perfectly. I've had this dialogue that turns to making that person, not even making them realize, but they start thinking, maybe this isn't for me. And that's not a negative, right? We
Yeah.
need to figure out a
Yeah.
path for you. And it might not be
Yeah.
in this department or in this position. And that's not a bad thing. And I think once
Yeah.
people realize now they're not only, you've come to an agreement on something, but they see that your interest in them is a little more genuine and that you want them to succeed. I've always wanted somebody to succeed. It just may have
Yeah.
to be in a different role.
Yeah,
I'm
being
jumping
honest
ahead a
about those
little.
kinds of things is super important. Sure. So yeah, I mean, good, fair point. Let's turn it back to what we're talking about. When we talk about again being a manager, and especially if we're focusing this conversation on like those first 90 days, go back, reflect on your first 90
Yeah.
days as a manager and the people you're mentoring who are in that role now. What are one or two lessons that you learned the hard way?
Call the obvious, right? What's the 800-pound gorilla in the room? You're young. It's
Hmm.
your first role. It's okay to bring that to the top of the, hey, I'm new in this role. I want to help, but I need some help as well, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to solve all the problems. If I had been a little
Yeah.
more modest early on, because you come in with a role with an expectation and a task, and you think, okay, these things are going to fall into place, and that couldn't be further from the truth,
Yeah.
right?
That's so true.
You're going
Yeah.
to have, if you
So
have a team of six, you're going to have two issues probably.
I like your math there, the ratios. Yeah. It's like I'm just going to count on two people.
Well,
No, that's good.
what do they
I
say?
know what you're saying.
40% of the invites are no shows or something like that. And
Yeah.
so I feel like when you're dealing with
Yeah.
population and people, 30% is a
When
good.
if you've read any of those leadership books like Patrick Lencioni and that kind of stuff, you're going to
Big
have
fan.
whatever it is. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember the percentage, but right, you have the people. It's super small percentage that are like out front. You know,
Hmm.
most of your people are going to be sit there in the middle, either not rowing or barely rowing, and then you've got a group of people in the back who actively row against you. And I
The
mean, that's
ideal
that's just a
team
part of
player, right?
management. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get that, and we've talked about this before. Like all of these things, there's so much that a person has to, especially a student, has to like ingest theoretically. And so,
Yeah.
what advice would you have for especially a student or a new manager who is just like soaking it up and they're reading all the books and they want to do such a good job, but everything right now is theoretical? How would you like encourage them to have something to a memorial, go back to this, write this down, whatever? How would you
Yeah.
encourage that
Yeah.
that person?
I say keep index cards, keep a few
Yeah.
keynotes, with you or in your bag. I mean, it's okay to carry reminders. I can't remember Patrick Lencioni's first book. I think it's The Ideal Team Player, or at least the
Hmm.
first book I read stuck
Yeah.
with me, but it only stuck with me because I had to remember specific things. And that's tough. And when you get into the moment, it's even harder to remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a, jot things down, remember it,
Yeah.
um, have the dialogue. If you're a new manager, I think that it's okay. Something else to keep in mind too, I learned early on, you don't have to have, these one-on-ones and these product or performance meetings just because
Hmm.
something negative. It's okay to
Yeah.
have positive too. Hey,
Yeah.
great job. Hey, this has been awesome. This is going really well. This really helps the team because of X. That means a lot and it goes a long way. I mean, especially today. I mean, there's so much
Yeah.
negative out there. I
Yeah.
mean, I've worked for organizations and people that I knew if I was getting a call, a text, or not even, it was before text, but
Mm.
a call, or I'm getting, hey, come by my office. I'm like, oh, this can't be good. We need to change that mindset, right? It could be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helps. And when
Yeah.
you're
100%.
new, it's a great balance. It's a great way to
Yeah.
start. And plus it has
So
you giving them buy-in.
Exactly, exactly. So if you had one piece of advice to give to a brand new manager, what do you want them to take away from this conversation?
I'm going to say get to know people on a personal level as soon as you can. And
Yeah,
if they're resistant, which people will be resistant, you have to just show vulnerability. You have to share something from your side that might help. I wish I did that sooner in a lot of roles because it would have
mm,
helped. If people, they'll drop their barriers, and some of
yeah,
them won't. Some it takes time, but I think it's a good practice. I think it's a good thing to start, and I think it's a good way to when you're starting a leadership role. Whether
yeah,
it's a discussion about a motorcycle, musical interest, family life, whatever, you might need to share what's going on with you in order to get some reciprocation.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's really true. And so, especially if, that's always been hard for someone like me because I like to get to work. When I
sure.
get there, I'm heads down and just want to start churning it out. But you're absolutely right. That's one thing that I learned. I've probably personally learned the hard way is making sure you connect with people personally. A lot of people's their friendships come from work,
Hmm.
and I think that's important to keep in mind that you really can change somebody's day just by
Yes.
by being a good manager.
You mentioned leadership being relational, and you
Yeah.
mentioned expecting authority to come
Mm.
automatically. And I
Yeah.
think new leaders, I face that, and it couldn't be further from the truth. You're gonna get if you divide out your team, you're gonna get your top. You're gonna get one quadrant of people that are great. You're the boss. Let's do this. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna get another quadrant that's okay. Yeah, I want to know a little bit about you, but then I'm off to the races. And
Yeah.
then it becomes a little more extreme. Like I'm
Yeah.
not interested, and I don't believe. And then you have this. I'm not listening. But you cannot negate the top two quadrants either. You
Yeah.
have to address them all. In sales, they always say sales leaders, you need to run with your winners. Okay. I'm not saying, what's the opposite side of that spectrum? It doesn't mean you have losers on the team. You just have
Yeah.
people that need to improve. And are they aware of
Yeah.
how they need to improve? They may not know, right? And you
Yeah.
have to get to know them personally first. Like you have to
Yeah.
break that barrier down.
Yeah.
I think
I I
that's
had
so
a
important.
I had a friend tell me one time that, he was saying like you have to the way he phrased it was you have to earn the right to speak to them. In other words, like
Yes.
nobody just likes yeah,
No.
nobody wants to be treated like a number and saying like, "Hey, you didn't hit your metrics this month, get out." And you have to earn the right to give that advice. It's like playing golf. It's the friend who's
Yeah.
like, "You want me to tell you what you're doing wrong when you can't hit a drive either?" You know, it's
Right.
like
Right.
having to
Yeah.
deal with
It's
that
like
stuff. Yeah. Could you imagine?
one of the biggest chunks of advice I got when I became a VP. I was a regional VP for 9 years, and I
Yeah.
hired a guy, and he said, Daniel, you've got to get over the fact that not everybody's going to like you or agree with what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not used to that,
Yeah.
And he said, it's just get over it. Like people are not always going to like what you have to say, but you have a job to do. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. And I'd been in, but you know what? I had gone from my team, I had direct
Mm.
reports that were drivers and office staff that were transactional, operationally minded. Now I have
Yeah.
regional salespeople, some tenured,
Yeah.
and different world. And once I got over that hump of, you know what, you're right. I've got a job to do. This is the decision. We're moving
Yeah.
forward. And his whole point was like, you got to get out of that mindset and just, we're moving forward. And some people
Yeah.
are going to disagree with it, but you just have to keep going. And I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, he's right. He's right. But I specifically remember him saying, like, not everybody's going to like what you have to say. And I thought, what? No, that's impossible. So,
Yeah. I don't think they think they know me well enough if they
They
don't
just
like me.
don't know. Exactly.
So let's kind of wrap it up here with a
Sure.
closing thought. Give
Okay.
me, if you want to give students some encouragement, encourage them, like students that are entering or desire to enter leadership roles. How would you wrap this up, and how would you encourage them?
Everything gets better with practice, and when you're aware of something, you're already improving. Awareness is key,
Mm,
and really know that you're not alone in this. Every new leader goes through this.
yeah,
And it's all about communication. It really comes down to communication and trust at the end of the day. And
yeah.
the more you can communicate and build a foundation, the faster things will fall into place. And the better you'll get, the more confident you'll get. It will really change the dynamic.
Well, thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate it, and I mean, thanks for your time and for your stories, for your examples. I think this is going to go a long way in helping everybody connect. And like we talked about, just making sure that this is all applicable. All of these management theories actually have application, and I think that that's something I really want students to understand.